Okay, well, let's just jump right in because this news is, well, it's huge. Damian Lillard, waived by the Bucks.
Yeah, I mean, you see headlines, but this one really makes you do a double take. A superstar point guard just waived.
Exactly. It came down Tuesday, July 1st, 2025. The Milwaukee Bucks waived Damian Lillard. And what we want to do today is really get into why.
Right. Go beyond just the shock value.
Yeah, pull back the layers on this. Why does a team waive a player like Dame, and what does it mean for him, for the Bucks? We're digging into the reporting here, mostly from CBS Sports, which picked up the initial scoop from ESPN's Shams Charania.
And it's important to clarify what waived means here. It's not a trade. His contract is terminated. He's gone.
And the context is crucial. Lillard's recovering from that torn Achilles.
Absolutely. The source material is really clear on that. He's expected to miss, well, probably all of next season, the 2025-26 season.
So that immediately puts him in a tough spot, right?
Yeah.
Rehabbing a major injury and now looking for a new team.
A very uncertain market for him, yeah. Especially coming off that kind of injury. It's a long road back.
Definitely. But this wasn't just about the injury in isolation, was it?
Yeah.
It feels like part of a bigger picture, a strategy from the Bucks.
Oh, absolutely. You're spot on. This didn't happen in a vacuum. The reporting links it directly to another massive move they made.
The Myles Turner acquisition.
Exactly. They brought in Myles Turner from the Pacers, signed him to a big deal to 4 years, what was it, $107 million?
Yeah, that's right. So bringing in Turner and then this Lillard news drops.
And the report actually calls the Lillard waiver another huge splash for the Bucks. That wording tells you something.
It implies it was planned, part of a sequence.
A calculated strategy, reshaping the roster aggressively. It wasn't just a reaction to the injury, but the injury likely factored into how they executed their plan.
Okay, so strategy makes sense, but Lillard had a massive contract. How do they navigate that financially? Waiving $113 million doesn't sound cheap.
Right, that's the other fascinating layer here, the financial gymnastics involved.
I heard the term creative way used.
Oh.
Sounds like some serious salary cap maneuvering.
It really is, and it shows how teams are using every tool available. They use something called the stretch provision.
The stretch provision. Okay, break that down.
So basically, it lets them take the remaining money owed to Lillard, that $113 million, and instead of taking the huge cap hit right away...
They spread it out.
Exactly. They spread the cap hit over 5 years, which, under the rules, is double the remaining years on his contract plus 1.
5 years. Wow. So smaller hit each year, but they're paying for longer.
Precisely. It lowers the immediate financial burden, gives them cap space now to do things like sign Turner, but yeah, Lillard stays on their books, in a sense, for half a decade.
That's a serious long-term commitment, even if it solves the short-term problem.
It's a trade-off. Flexibility now versus financial obligations later. It really highlights the aggressive asset management we're seeing.
Okay, that financial part is key. But let's circle back to the injury itself. You mentioned the Achilles tear. The timing of that and how it developed seems really important to understanding the Bucks' decision.
Absolutely critical context. And the reporting gives us a pretty clear timeline if you look at the more news section they reference.
Right. What did it say?
Well, the definitive news broke April 28th, 2025. Tears Achilles, out for season. And he was scheduled for an MRI that day to confirm it all.
Okay, so late April is when it became official.
Yeah, but leading right up to that, on that same day, April 28th, there were reports like, won't return Sunday, and that he checks out of Game 4. So you could see something serious was happening.
And was there anything before that? Any signs?
The reports mention struggles just before the actual tear. April 26th, struggles from field in Game 3, and even earlier, April 23rd, rough shooting night in return.
Ah, so it wasn't completely out of the blue. It sounds like maybe something was bothering him building up before the final injury?
Yeah, that's what the timeline suggests, yeah. Increasing discomfort, maybe, leading to the eventual tear. It wasn't just one bad landing, potentially. It was developing.
Which, might have played into the Bucks' thinking when weighing their options long term.
Could very well have. Knowing the severity and the recovery timeline for an Achilles, especially with those prior struggles noted.
So, for everyone listening, just take a step back and think about this. A player widely considered a superstar on a massive contract, waived, right after the team makes another huge move. How often do you see something like this?
It's incredibly rare, especially the combination of factors, the player's status, the contract size, the injury, and the timing relative to other major team moves. It's a confluence of events that forces a difficult decision.
Right. So when you put all these pieces together, the shock waiver, the Turner trade, the creative stretching of the contract, and Lillard's injury. What's the big takeaway here?
Well, I think it paints a really clear picture of the Bucks' priorities. They chose immediate roster overhaul and financial flexibility, using that stretch provision over maybe a more traditional approach of holding on to an injured superstar.
Even though it means paying him for 5 years not to play for them.
Exactly. It signals a real commitment to a specific future vision and maybe a belief that they needed a different roster construction now to achieve it, even if it meant this incredibly tough, high-profile move.
It definitely makes you reconsider the whole idea of player security, especially for stars on huge deals.
It does. Is anyone truly untouchable if the strategic fit or maybe the health outlook shifts dramatically?
So here's something to really chew on, something to think about after we finish up. In this era of huge contracts and complex team building, what does a move like this really signify? Waiving a superstar, eating that contract via the stretch after a big trade. Is this just a unique situation driven by a specific injury and opportunity?
Or is it maybe a sign of something bigger, a shift towards even more aggressive, perhaps ruthless roster management?
Yeah, our team's becoming more willing to cut ties, even with franchise-level players, if it serves a larger strategic purpose or mitigates long-term risk, like a major injury.
It really forces you to ask, how is this changing the balance between player security and team flexibility? And what does it mean for how teams might approach injuries and long-term deals moving forward? Is this the new normal or just a really big outlier?
That's the question, I think. Lots to unpack there. A really fascinating and honestly pretty shocking development in the NBA.